Okay, so today we're talking about rate of change and slope. Here is our slope-intercept form. Today we are specifically talking about the m, or the slope. Okay, we are specifically talking about just the m. So it says rate of change is the change in y over the change in x. What that means is going from coordinate to coordinate. Okay, so if I have, I'm going to make myself a little bit more room. You guys should be fine though. So if I have a coordinate x1, y1, the 1 just means that's my first point. And then I have another coordinate x2, y2. Yeah? So these are just my two coordinates. I have one coordinate and I have two coordinates. Okay? So the m, to find it when you're given coordinates or points, is you do the change in y over the change in x. So the change in y, you're going to take y2, and it's changing, so we're minus y1 to find the difference in the change. Same thing on the bottom, just with the x's. x2 minus x1. Now, people always ask, does it matter which one I put first? Yes and no. Okay? If you put y2 first, you have to put x2 also first. But if you put the 1 first, that's totally fine. Okay, but I would get in the habit of doing y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. Okay, but they have to be symmetrical with each other. Okay, they got to be in the same order. So this here, circle it, star it, highlight it, I don't care. That is going to be your friend for right now. Okay, that, you're going to get tired of it, but that is what you are doing today with the rate of change and slope-intercept form. Okay? All right. I'm going to move on here. I want you to draw yourself a little graph. Draw yourself a graph.
On which one?
That next slide. Draw yourself a graph. Like 3 tick marks going each way. Okay? I'm going to start my 1 point here. We're also going to talk about how to find the slope on a graph, just looking at a graph. Okay? So this point, what point is that?
That's 0.
0, 0, right? Or what's another word for it? Origin, the origin. If I put another point here, and this is at, I'm going to put this at 0, 0. This is at 2, 2. Okay? We can use this to find rate of change. We can do the formula. Or when you're given a graph, you can just count it. Okay? So, rise over run. Rise over run. We're rising, so we're going up or down. So that's the y-axis. Run, we're going horizontal, that's the x-axis. Okay? So, what is my rise? How many points am I rising? If I start here,
2.
1, 2. So my slope would be 2. The rise would be 2. What's my run?
2.
1, 2. What's 2 divided by 2?
1.
1. Does that make sense, the rise over run concept? I'm just going from point A to point B. Rise over run. Okay? You're also going to see that today. No. Okay, in a nutshell, this is what we just talked about. All of what we just talked about is in this slide right here. Okay? So, let's put this formula to use and have some practice with it. Okay? On this one, they do it for us. They give us a x1, y1, and a x2, y2. All they're doing is plugging it in to this equation. Okay? So, On your homework, this is what I would do. Label this x1, put x1 above it, put y1 above it. Over here, put x2 above it, put y2 above it. Okay? Then you don't get confused or mixed up when you're actually putting it in the equation. Okay? So our y2 was 5. Our y1 was 2. Our x2 was 5. And our x1 was -3. Notice that is always subtraction. But what is this bottom right here? What does that turn into? 5 minus a -3. 2 negatives make a positive, so that turns into 5 plus 3. So be careful with the negatives. That might be a little tricky in there. Okay? Let's do practice here.
What page is this on?
This is on page 6 of your notes on the bottom. Okay? So we want to find the slope of a line that passes through coordinate 4, 5 and coordinate 7, 6. What is our first step before we start plugging some things in?
Label.
Label. What would 4, 5 be? X1 and Y1 because it's your first coordinate. What about 7, 6? X2, Y2. Refresh my brain here. What is our slope formula? It is rise over run with coordinates. What is it?
y2 minus y1 over x1 minus
X2 minus x1.
There you go. X2 minus x1. Okay, we have everything. We're looking for m. M means slope, so we just need to plug it in. What's my y2 that we labeled?
7.
Y2.
Oh, y2 6.
Y2, 6. What's y1? 5. 6 minus 5. What's my x2?
7.
7. What's my x1? 4. Now we just need to evaluate those, solve those. So what's 6 minus 5? 1. What's 7 minus 3? 7 minus 4? 3. So we get 1/3. Okay? Is that a positive or a negative slope? It is positive. Yep. Go ahead and try that next one on your own. Be careful with your negatives. All right. What is our first step when we're given 2 coordinates to find the slope? Label. X1, Y1, X2, Y2. Okay. Now we need to plug it in. What is my Y2? -7. Minus, it's always minus, always subtract. What is my X1? -3. What do 2 negatives make? Positive. Do we all understand this happening right here? Oh, I'm sorry. It's -5. I'm sorry. -5. Anyways, 2 negatives make a positive. Do we all understand this? Why it turns into positive? Okay. What's my x2? -2. What's my? It's always subtraction. What's my x1? -3. What happens?
The 3 turns into a positive and you change.
They turn positive. So now we just need to evaluate those. What's -7 plus 5? -2. What's -2 plus 3? 1. What's -2 divided by 1? -2. Don't skip any of these steps. Okay? That causes a lot of mistakes that are silly that shouldn't be happening. Okay? Don't skip over this stuff. All right, let's look at that one. What's our first step always? Label. We have X1, Y1, X2, Y2. What's my Y2? -1. What's my Y1? Minus a -1. What happens? Turns into plus. What's my X2? 5 minus -3. That turns into plus. What's -1 plus 1? 0. What's 5 plus 3? M equals 0 divided by 8. Can you take a number divided by, or can you take 0 divided by a number? This? Can you do this?
Yes.
Yes, you can do that. But can I take a number divided by 0? No. Okay? What I've learned, and if you've struggled with knowing this before, write this down. Okay, if I have 0 divided by a number k, or x, but in this acronym it works this way, that is okay. If I have a number divided by 0, that is no. Can't do that. So if this helps you, this helps me. If this helps you, write this down, remember this. Okay, if 0's on top, that's okay. If 0's on the bottom, that's a no. Okay? If 0 was on the bottom, what would my answer have been? Would it have been 0? What would have my answer been? Undefined. So if 0 is on the bottom, the answer is undefined. There's no slope. Okay, because you can't take a number and divide it by 0. Okay, so remember those little things here. So this one, undefined. This one, 0. Okay? Let me see what we got left. One more thing we got to talk about. Go to the very last slide. Very last slide. Okay, here we're going to be given 2 coordinates, but we're also going to be given the slope. So, still start everything off by labeling. P4, that is my x1, y1. Start with labeling. This is my x2, y2. What is negative 5 over 8? What does it say my negative 5 over 8 is? The slope. What letter signifies slope? M. Okay, so we have our regular equation that m equals y2 over minus y1 over x2 minus x1. We're still using that equation, plugging everything in we know. What's m? Negative 5 over 8. So we plug in negative 5 over 8 for m. What is my y2? Negative 1 minus 4 over 3 minus p. Evaluate what you know. Okay, so we can't do anything over here, right? What's negative 1 minus 4?
Negative 5.
Negative 5. We can't do anything with the bottom. Now we have a proportion that you did last chapter, right? How do I solve this? Okay, we have that equal sign in there. We have more than 2 fractions, right? Or we have more than 1 fraction. We have 2 fractions.
Oh wait, we multiply.
Cross multiply. So we take negative 5. Remember, if you have a number with something else? Parentheses. So we have negative 5 times 3 minus p equals, what's on the other side? 8 times negative 5, which is negative 40. And then we solve from here. What's my first step in solving? Distribute. What's negative 5 times 3? Negative 15. Negative 5 times negative p. Negative or positive? Plus 5p equals negative 40. What's my next step here?
Add 15 to both sides.
Good. Add 15 to both sides. So we have 5p equals negative 25. And then last step, divide by 5. P equals negative 5. Okay, so you're using proportions to find the other part of your coordinate. Okay? So that one you use the same equation we've been using, set it up, and then solve. Any questions over rate of change in slope? Okay.